Welcome back to Career Lab. We've had a fantastic caller on this morning, and now for the second part of the show, we have a great guest with us, and I'd like to go ahead and introduce her to Julie and to our listeners. Erin Brown, welcome to the show. Great to have you on Career Lab. Erin's a friend of mine, a colleague, and a person I know from a number of professional contacts. And Erin has been working with the LLS Society, the Leukemia Lymphoma Society, for some time and has a really unique perspective on working in nonprofits and working in nonprofits that are involved in healthcare and life-saving kinds of things. So why don't we open up, Erin, by telling us a little bit about what you have been doing with LLS.
Sure. So I've been with the Leukemia Lymphoma Society for about 3 years now. I started off working as a campaign development manager for our largest peer-to-peer fundraising event that is designed, it's a community-oriented program, and it was about $1 million goal here in San Diego. And then I transitioned over to our Man and Woman of the Year campaign, which is just as big of an impact. Our goal for this year is to raise $1 million as well, but it's a much more pared down. It's only about 11 people who raise that big amount in just 10 short weeks versus like the night, which is a longer period of time which people can fundraise for and more people fundraise for.
The Leukemia Lymphoma Society takes care of children who want to share a little bit about their condition.
LLS is the largest nonprofit dedicated to finding a cure for blood cancers. We've been around for about 70 years now. And it's really interesting how it started was a family, their 16-year-old son, Robbie, was diagnosed with ALL, acute lymphoblastic leukemia, which is the highest diagnosed form of cancer in children. And back then, there was no treatment. There was no cure. There was nothing available. And so to honor Robbie's passing, his family started the Leukemia Society, which is now the Leukemia Lymphoma Society. And since then, since the past 70 years, we have a 92% cure rate for that same disease. And that really goes to show how much the work that LLS is doing and how important it is. And, it's really neat. We're in a really neat time with research and therapies and different programs that are available to support so many different kinds of blood cancers that oftentimes are overlooked because they're less diagnosed. So it's really, really important work. I can talk about this forever, so let me know. I'll nerd out.
I love that, Erin. I love that you are so thrilled with what you do and what your company does. It sounds wonderful. And separately from that, there are so many people who come to me, I just want to work for a company where I believe in what they're doing. And you have that.
Yeah.
It's so nice to see.
It's very cool. I have a connection to the mission. My dad is a survivor, and I really do attribute that to the work that LLS does. I can say that for many of our constituents and people that are involved with LLS as volunteers. A lot of them really do attribute their life because of the research that LLS does. So
how nice to align such a purpose.
Yeah, it's pretty neat.
The people that you work with at LLS, because it's a nonprofit, do you feel like you're working with a group of professionals that has a little more dedication because of what they're doing, as Julie's mentioning?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think the first thing that struck me when I started with LLS, I was just kind of blown away because I was like, wait, everyone is so nice. Genuinely kind people who so passionately have something in common, and that's caring about this cause. And they work so hard to really forward the mission and fundraise and find money for research and find new therapies and new cures. And it's really incredible. It really is incredible. What an amazing group of people.
So you feel like you were joining in a group of peers who were kind of as dedicated as you either were or became as you went on through your mission, huh?
Yeah, 100%. I feel like I was excited. I had never worked for a nonprofit before. This is my first nonprofit job. I kind of didn't know what to expect. And then I was just really blown away at how dedicated everyone truly is. And I think it was very inspiring for me. And so that really kind of fueled that for me as well.
Well, you'd worked for for-profit companies before then, so this
yes,
is your
I
first experience. Yeah, so it really sounds like it changed the complexion of the way you look at work.
100%. I agree. Yes, for sure.
Erin, do you feel like you want to stay in nonprofit and drive toward an executive level position at some point?
Honestly, I've really loved my time in nonprofit space, but I think that this will probably be my last nonprofit job.
Do you mind sharing with us some of your thoughts around that?
Yeah, like I said, this was my first nonprofit job. And so I really have loved so much about it. But I think particularly in the role that I'm in, I work very closely with a lot of volunteers. And I'm just kind of I'm very empathetic and compassionate by nature. And so I oftentimes, I hear a lot of stories and I see it all, and people share a lot with me. And personally, that's hard for me. And so I've worked really hard to, support myself and where I need, and, getting myself to a happy and healthy place with that. But I think that for me, I'm kind of ready to move back into the for-profit sector.
It sounds like it's emotionally taxing, even though there's a lot of fulfillment there.
It can be. And other people are so much better at that part of it than me. And so that's the only thing that's not the perfect fit, for me.
But yet, in some ways, although, as you say, it may not be the perfect fit, it seems like it's given you a quality of empathy and involved you in the work. When I see you in other contexts and I see how you relate to the work you do, I mean, it's really impressive, and it kind of knocked me back when I first saw it. And I thought, this person's really, really translating her commitment and her energy in a way that other people can relate to.
Yeah, I wouldn't change my experience for the world. I firmly believe that every single person should work in a restaurant at some point in their life, because I feel like it develops so many very important skills. And I think that everyone should work in a nonprofit for at least 1 year. I think the world would be truly a better place. If you can find what you're passionate about and you can get into that space, the amount of inspiration that is in front of you, and, that you can have purpose with your work every single day. There's days where I'd be so tired and I'm like, I can't send another email. I'm uncomfortable. I don't want to ask this person if they're interested in sponsoring or, cutting a check or giving us dollars. And then I think about these kids that I'm like, well, they can fight cancer. I can send a freaking email. And so, and it's true. I don't know. I think it's been an truly amazing experience. I have grown in so many areas, personally and professionally, through this opportunity.
In terms of leveraging your experience, these 3 years are going to be a diamond that you carry with you into your future career. And I'd love to know where you think you might take it, but I can just see you going into a large organization where they have employee assistance programs, EAPs, or wellness programs, and where you could really understand the need that the employee has and really care about that and help them connect with the right resource in the community, or maybe work on the philanthropic arm of a company. But where do you think you might go after this, Erin?
I love that idea. That's kind of where I was really interested in moving towards. I've grown so much. I've really worked in sales for the past 3 years, I think.
Yes.
I've 100%. And I'm selling almost nothing in a way, you get an experience, and you can go to these fundraisers or these galas or this event, and, you do get marketing benefits through it, but you get feelings too, And so that's been really interesting. I mean, I've been a marketing and communications manager. I've really gotten good at graphic design, actually, from making flyers for fundraisers. I think that the skills that I've developed, because you wear so many different hats, in working in a nonprofit, that it really does open the door to go truly anywhere. I mean, I feel like there's skills that I could apply at any job.
Erin, I know a lot of our listeners would probably like to know, when you said everybody should work at a nonprofit for some period of time or whatever, what are some of the things you think that, just at a nonprofit of any kind you gained, and that our other listeners that might appeal to them and might help them understand what's different about working in a nonprofit?
The reason why I was interested in giving nonprofit a shot, I actually worked at a solar company right when I moved out to San Diego. And the people that I was working with, they were so passionate about sustainability, really like saving the earth. They were activists. Like we were going down to our local representative's office and like there would be people picketing. There's like climate action groups. And we were kind of involved in all of that. And it was because leadership at my company was so passionate about that type of work. And so that was so inspiring to me, where I was like, well, I want to work somewhere that I can feel that way, where I can go to work and like feel that I'm making a difference, or, that I can make a change. And so I had this opportunity with LLS come into my lap. And I had that direct mission connection. And so I was kind of like in that pool of people that also had a similar connection and we're working for like the same, and just the momentum that comes with that is so cool. So I think to answer your question, it's just identifying something that you're passionate about, or something that you care about, or something that has been, something in your life that maybe you could make a change for someone else, or do something that could make better for someone else in the future. And that, like, it is the most fulfilling feeling, knowing that you can do that for someone.
So, Julie, I want to ask you, because you work with this a lot, it sounds like Erin is delineating a deeper level of what a nonprofit is about, regardless of what they do specifically. But it's more about your passion, more about giving to others, more about being connected with others. And I think as career professionals, we see that a lot, don't we?
Yeah, and I think, and I'm not in any way trying to minimize your purpose and passion and the alignment of your dad being a survivor with what you're doing now. But when you take a step way far back from this, let's say 10 years from now, what is the meaning of this step in your career? I don't think it really is about the leukemia itself for you or other people who have that same igniting feeling of passion and purpose and connection. I think what it is that you have learned how to see what you care about and to stand for something in any job that you're going to have. And it doesn't mean that you're not going to have flexibility to throw in the towel every now and then if it doesn't fit an agenda. But you're going to be a little less passive in your career and a little more self-directed in your career, and be able to see opportunities that are real opportunities and jump on those and know what that feels like and looks like and what that purposeful connection is. Some jobs are going to give you that. Some jobs are not. And I think you've developed the self-awareness and the acuity for what's going on out there to be able to continually work to an end, with some kind of meaning behind it. And that's a really neat message for you and for anybody else who continuously and chronically cannot find a way to align their purpose inside of them with some meaningful work outside of them. Because career actually is the outward expression of who we are on the inside. And this has matured your emotional sophistication and your worker sophistication magnificently. So I hope that this 3-year step in your career will help you in the future discern between roles that will and won't allow you to express who you are on the inside.
And that's why I asked you the question, Julie, because I knew you would provide for all of our listeners a truly magnificent answer, because that's where I really wanted to go with this talk, is the idea that work hopefully can be about more than just going there and collecting a paycheck. Obviously, Erin, you're kind of a more extreme example of that. You have such a high degree of meaningfulness, which you're sharing, and it's inspiring to all of us to have you on the show. But Julie, what you've talked about is really key, that all of us need to look at where we are relative to what we're getting out of our job other than our paycheck, because we only come through this life once. We can't go back, I don't think, anyhow, and do it again. And if we are not getting anything out of where we are, then we need to stop and evaluate that. And I think, Erin, you're a representative of that, as Julie has highlighted today. You're someone who had stopped and tried something that really was so life-changing for you in terms of its meaningfulness. As Julie, you said a moment ago, everybody may not get there. Everybody may not get to work for this kind of a nonprofit, but the idea that there's more to life than just punching a clock and getting a check. That is really an important thing that a lot of people still aren't able to actualize. Julie knows this better than anyone because you sit in the office all day long with people who they may be struggling with job A or job B, but what they're really struggling with is trying to find something that means more to them, right?
Absolutely. And people put a paycheck as their primary criteria for selecting a career, which is the most asinine. Who gave them that advice? That careers should have nothing to do with paychecks. Because if you're good at what you do and you love what you do, you're going to make money, period. It solves the problem. You should lead with purpose first.
I so agree with that. I think purpose is kind of in the highlight of this entire conversation. It's just like finding your purpose. And I agree that this job, this experience will forever change the way that I look at any other choice of career or path that I take. I 100% agree with that.
Okay, now in defense of the labor market, Erin, I have to warn you not to burst the bubble. It will probably never feel as rich as an experience as this one did.
Yes, I would agree with that. I get that. I've had a very unique career path. I call it a squiggle, not a linear line. I've done so many random things, but this has been a big one for me. And offline conversations with Joel too have really made me think more big picture, which it's not something that you're taught when you're in high school, you're in college and you're trying to figure out what am I going to do. I've for the first 15 years after college, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, and I was like, just trying to figure it out.
Well, the first 10 years are the skill building years. We have a 20-year skill building phase after college, and you're about halfway through it. So the first 10 years are really for a lot of trial and error. And it's not until that 10th to 15th year after, your early to mid 20s that you really do kind of try to form a more clear picture of where you fit. So
I'm doing okay. Thanks, Julie.
Tracking.
So, this is a great conversation for our listeners and was one of the reasons why Julie and I wanted to have you on the show. Because I know there's a lot of people out there hearing our podcast who are going, gee, that's kind of me. I took a job and I'm working in it. I need the paycheck and I don't really know if it's really something that I'm destined to do or whether and so let's talk about that for a minute, especially since we have a guest like yourself in the room and we have an expert like you in the room, Julie. I think from my perspective, I think a lot of people do get caught up in what they're doing. And of course, the financial remuneration is a big part of what allows us to live and take care of our families. And we kind of put blinders on then about where we really might go and what we might do. And what happens is we end up a lot less happy than we could be because we don't have the emotional capacity and the emotional resilience to think outside of where we are. Very understandable because we all need to take care of ourselves and the world is a very tough place. But having someone like you on the show hopefully will resonate with some of our listeners to be able to think, wait a minute. There really is more. And, it can't be the paycheck at 100 and everything else at 9. It's got to be as Julie pointed out earlier in this conversation, it's got to be a little more balanced. And I know Julie and I together, working with a number of professionals over the years, have seen people's lives turn around because they were able to make a choice that helped them to actualize some of their other feelings and their other capacities other than just earning money.
And just their mental health picture has improved. I mean, people can get into depression and anxiety and poor eating habits and really some physically unhealthy habits if you're in the wrong job. It's shocking how important what we do for a living drives our overall health as a human.
I'm so glad you said that, Julie, because I want to ask you, Erin, since I do know you, one thing I've noticed about you is I've always wanted to know that you are such a giving person. You're like always on full give, and I wonder how you've been able to manage that without kind of falling into a hole yourself.
That's a great question.
Yeah, it is a great question. I want you to answer it.
Honestly, I truly, through actually my employee resource program through our ERP, I was able to speak with a therapist, and I have been speaking with therapists for the past 2 years since being at LLS, because I felt that exact same way, and I was like, this is not sustainable for me, and it's been something that has been a theme throughout my career and just in my life. I'm just that person. And so I've really been working to like build out my toolbox and my skill set in that area of like self-preservation and self-care, and how can I recharge, or what does boundaries look like? You can really give so much, but like at what point are you giving too much? And so I think that's also like, it's a coming of age, like I'm in my mid-30s now, and it's all things are starting to make a lot more sense, because I've had those jobs that you've talked about, Julie, where you're just like, I was completely not even myself for a 6-month portion at a job that was such the wrong fit for me. I was a mess. And so it is really important to recognize that, like, if you're not yourself, there's not alignment, you can get another job. There's always something else out there. And being healthy is the most important.
And that right there is the healthy pivot point. The one that you just outlined is I sustained it for 6 months and I realized it was time to get out. So shortening, you gave it, I think you gave that other job a good college try, and thank God you didn't let it sustain, into a 6-year situation.
Yeah, that was not an option.
Well, I'm so glad you spoke a little bit about your own emotional growth through the job, because again, I think a lot of us need to think more about that, about how we manage that. Obviously, you're in a job where your emotions are front and center daily. You're seeing the most difficult illness in children. I mean, that's one of the hardest things to have to be a part of on a regular basis. But even if you're not in that tougher career spot, I mean, I think the thing you kind of threw those out there like they didn't mean anything, but therapy, boundaries, all the things you just talked about, those are very important in understanding how to modulate our emotional giving, to be able to give, to be able to be in a position where we do give and create more, and yet still have a healthy, sort of safe environment, the way you kind of described it, Julie.
I think it ends up feeling better at that point too, because it's conscious giving. It's not just like full blown, let the floodgates out, So you get so much more out of it because you're actually able to like receive it back, which is nice.
When I see you in other contexts, Erin, I know that you're one of those rare people who's, again, almost always on the verge of giving too much, and yet you know how to control yourself and present in a way that, again, is pretty inspiring, I think, for others to see, not just in terms of the sector you've been in, but your personality as well. And that was one of the reasons why we wanted to have you on the show.
Thank you.
I love your energy, Erin.
Oh, you guys are the best. This is so fun. I was so honored and flattered that this was an opportunity that you saw, that would be interesting. So I really appreciate it. And I just really admire Dr. Joel so much. He just in like short conversations, like has completely changed at how I've looked at my career. Truly, in very short conversations, has completely changed 36 years of my life. And so I will forever appreciate you for that. And Julie, you are just so interesting
thank you.
To speak with.
Well, I think I speak for Julie when I said we're actually the ones who are honored, and our listeners are honored to have had you on. So it's been a really great time having you on. Now that Julie has helped, Julie, in talking to you, you shared that you're probably going to be moving out of the nonprofit sector here and moving on. Maybe you could come back and join us again after you've had, some months at your next station, your next stop. That would be very interesting, wouldn't it, Julie, to see how Erin's doing and what's going on with her? And might really be meaningful for our listeners as well.
I wish there were Vegas odds on where people's careers are going to go, because I would love to roll the dice. I think I have a couple ideas of where you might land. I think there's different probability on 3 different career paths. But come back in a year and let us know, and I'll tell you if I was right.
I love that so much. I would absolutely love to come back, and that's so cool. I think that's really, thank you.
Okay, Erin. Well, it's been great having you on the show. Thanks so much. I know I'll see you soon.
Yes.
Take care and be well.
All right, you all
Erin,
too.
one last thing. Go Google employer branding, employment branding.
Okay, I'm going to do that right now.
Okay.
That's a special message. See you later.
Thank
See
you
you
for being on
soon.
the show, Erin.
Thank you. Have a great weekend.
Well, Julie, I thought it was really great that we were able to have that caller and that guest on today's show.
So much clinical data in that one. She's such a positive force, but the impact of this most recent career move, these 3 years, on her psyche and her outlook and her ability to recognize her lack of boundaries and what is and isn't sustainable for her is just so important. That was the key. This job was a great job for her as an adult. In becoming an adult, this grew her up.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a key point that I didn't really recognize as much until she actually came on the show.
Right.
And you helped her actually talk about that. That's true, because I've only known her in this capacity. Very, very interesting to hear that. And also, I think for our listeners, I mean, again, one of the reasons I wanted to have Erin on the show, and I know you did as well, Julie, is to help expose people to the nonprofit space. And I think what's important was what we tried to talk about during this segment. Everybody who's listening to Career Lab this morning, there's more to life than some of these jobs that you have. And some nonprofits, by definition, have more meaningfulness in them.
Mm-hmm.
Because the salary, the money, the profitability of the company, Julie and I are going to talk about that for a minute, is not the prime goal of the organization, as it is in most other organizations,
Right.
where, the bottom line, the share value, the profitability, and the accelerating salary and remuneration dimensions of employees and employers are the key dimension. And in nonprofits, it's really not only about that, isn't it?
That's right. A nonprofit would much rather have somebody giving, $500 year after year after year than, $2,500 once and never come back again. So it's really about, relationships and visibility and recognition and awareness and growing a mission and creating those external partnerships. And she has a great personality for it. But again, she's not a lifer in nonprofits. Some people are really built for it. One of my clients is the executive director. I've worked with a lot of higher end, career nonprofit.
I know you have
professionals, and there is a type. They fit into it like an accountant fits in a beanbox. I mean, it is. Sorry, y'all. There is a type, and they are sophisticated and good at what they do and authentic. Oh, really nice people.
So I think, before we wrap up, for our listeners, again, to take away from the idea that, because when I think you and I both have the same experience, Julie, when we talk to a lot of professionals who don't know about nonprofits, they have a lot of misconceptions. They don't make money. I can't get anywhere there. It won't be a good place for me. I can't get a promotion. But really, there's some other things going on there. And that's why I wanted Erin on the show, to help our listeners understand it. Maybe it is important for you to work in a nonprofit for a year.
Well, and I wanted to interpret that for the readers for just a moment, if you don't mind. She said something really key there. I think everybody should work in a nonprofit. Everybody should work in a restaurant, which I would agree. I would agree with her. It's great skills. You learn how to break the ice with strangers, and that's an important life skill. But that everybody should work in a nonprofit. I like what she said. My interpretation of that is that what her real message there was that everybody should take a chance on trying something that means something to them. It doesn't have to be in a nonprofit, but take that chance.
Boy, nobody could have said it better than you. I guess that's why you're America's career counselor. Wow. That was really, really beautifully said. And so completely true. All right. Well, we're getting the high sign that this podcast is just about going to wrap. It's been a phenomenal show. So glad, Julie, we could get together with these people. We'll be back soon again on Career Lab. Remember, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts, iTunes, Stitcher, Apple, Android platforms. We're available. Yes, you'll see Julie and my smiling face up there, and you'll hear our wonderful voices talking to people. Please follow us. Please like us. Please listen to us. And we will be back, hopefully, to help you all with your careers and your career development. So see you soon.